Interview types and purposes. There's a lot of detail here, so I'm going to go quickly. This is one of those PowerPoint slides. I recommend you actually keep the entire presentation. You may not need to worry about this now, but there will be some point in your life where you're going to be sitting in front of a person or a group of people for an interview. Just so you know, the stress of a job interview can actually be healthy. Help you focus in on who you are, because you have to practice beforehand. Study the company, study yourself in the process. Make certain that this is the world you want to get into. Regardless, you want to give a lot of positive energy. Nobody likes negative people to be around them. If you are a negative person and you're always worried about different things, that's not something you want to exude in the interview. Sit down there, and if you have to sit down and cheat and sit down and be happy and bubbly that day in the process, they are going to expect you to be nervous. That's pretty normal. So if you stumble, bumble, or whatever in the process, keep in mind, they know where you're sitting and they expect you to sit down and be nervous in the process. Don't get too comfortable in an interview. I recommend you only sit on the front 2/3 of the chair. Don't get comfortable so you lean back in the chair and you're all there. No, you need to sit on the front end and be a little bit edgy. You want to keep yourself on edge, keep yourself sharp as you go through. Watch for blocking traits. We talked previously about nonverbal communication. You want to be the one with the open hands in the process over here. Don't sit there and cross your arms like this. Don't even put your hands in front of you like this, because you want to sit down and be open to the committee. This closes off, this is open. Be careful about putting your hands in your face in the process as you go through the whole thing. You want to sit down and make certain you're being articulate to the group in front of you. So while you're interviewing them, okay, you also want to be the one that's listening to all that. So just because they're asking you the questions, you want to sit there and be watching them. Are these the people that you want to work with? I've had somebody go through the interview process and then they figured out, I don't want to work here. They want to check a couple more things. They don't. So be careful, because of the fact that this is a process that you go through. Stressful in the job interviews. You can reduce your anxiety if you prepare thoroughly, if you learn what to expect. A lot of different trends in interviewing. I've been interviewed by a computer once. It's like, okay, they ask you a question and then you respond back to the computer. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm not certain what I think about the process, but it really doesn't matter because the company likes the process. So whether you like it or don't, sometimes they're there to weed out unsuitable candidates in a process. A lot of times there's also multiple interviewers. Laszlo Bock wrote a book about hiring at Google. They went through 24 different interviews at different levels, a lot of coworkers in their process. The way they worked is that if anybody gives you, a black spot, it's a black mark against you, and 2 black spots, it sounds like a pirate movie, 2 black spots and you're out. Okay, so that being said, you have to go through all these different things. He documented the quality of candidates after 24 interviews. I can't imagine going through that process. It has to be nerve-wracking. I've gone through process before where I've had 6 interviews. So having multiple interviews is not uncommon. Sometimes, if you recall from the last chapter, I was pretty specific about make certain you always have your materials with you at all times. Keep it digitally in your phone, keep a file folder in your car. You don't know who's there. Sometimes something comes across and you happen to be having lunch and somebody's sitting across from you. Hey, I hear you're going to apply for this job. And you have an on-the-spot interview. And who knows, that may be the interview that lands you the job in the process. There's different kinds of tests involved. Sometimes employers, they give psychological tests to reveal candidate strength. They can require presentation and projects. It's pretty common to walk into an interview and there's a test sitting over there and you have to respond back. How would you handle this over here? Sometimes they videotape them and everything else in the process. And sometimes it's a matter of filling out a letter. Sometimes it's a spreadsheet. I've done both. It depends what you're doing in the process. A lot of times on an interview, a smart interview committee will have a behavioral or situation question. What would happen if you have an irate customer on the phone and they're yelling at you and everything else? You're yelling so loud, you don't know what to do. Okay, so you sit down and calmly, they have to provide an answer. Think about these things in the head. It's pretty common to also have a problem-solving question in there as to how you solve a problem or a crisis at work and what you did about it. So you'll have a situation. So have at least 2 or 3 cases in your head where you have actually sat down and addressed the situation that was difficult, and because they want to see how you think in the process. It's a really good way of dealing with it. Sometimes there's group interviews. As a matter of fact, I've heard of them much more common, where they have 4 or 5 candidates in the same room and they're asking the same questions, which is kind of weird because of the fact that people are copying each other's answers, what works best. So it's kind of a situation, but you'll see people doing that. It just depends on what the company's culture is like in the process. Your goal is a couple things. You want to convince the employer of your potential. You want to make certain you expand the information on your resume. You also, before you walk in there, you want to learn more about the company on the inside. And you want to decide whether that job suits your career goals. Make certain it's a match 2 ways in the process. Evaluate the place as a potential workplace. I have a friend of mine, he applied for a job as a college president. I warned him not to apply. He ended up getting the job. It was the worst thing that ever happened to him. And he was gone in about 19 months by the time it was all done. It was a difficult place, and it was a toxic place to work. And I warned him about it because I was on the accreditation team. He did it anyway. Be careful of where you go. The grass is not always greener. Sometimes they spray green paint on top of brown grass. So be careful. On a recruiter is somebody you can talk to. You want to talk about different things. You always want to be positive no matter what happens. Don't talk bad about the company you're currently in. Discuss your training, experience, and qualifications in detail. See what drives and motivates you. That's what they're trying to do, to sit down and see if you're a fit for the company, because the recruiter gets money if they place somebody that stays there for a long period of time. If you're somebody that's going to sit down and apply for a job, you get it, 7 months later you leave, the recruiter loses fees, and they also may lose the goodwill of the person they placed you with. It is in their financial interest to make certain that they get somebody good, a good match for the company in the process. So make certain if you're talking to one, what you're involved with. Okay, 6 stages of hiring. Fill out the application completely, beginning to end, double check it, make certain you sign it. 4 to 6% of applications are not signed and don't get past anything past the very first initial screening. A lot of times the initial screening where they want to sit down and talk to you about your application is done by telephone or a video of some type. Secondary screening, sometimes it's done by telephone. Usually the second one is actually in person. It doesn't matter whatever that company is choosing to do. And then finally, there's a proposal to the hiring manager for a preview. And then finally, you have a hiring interview in the process. It depends as to what you're going to. Common is at least 2 different interviews, an initial screening interview and an interview with the person you'll be working with. It is more and more common to have 2 or 3, an AI interview, then they pass you on. Once you get there, you have another interview in the process over the phone, and also it's another one on top of that, and then finally you get an offer. 2 types of employment interviews. One is screening, and they want to weed out unqualified candidates. So you don't want to be thrown out. Your goal of your resume is to get through the screening and then also to get onto the interview, which is the hiring interview. Typically, at this level, you'll have 10 or less people at this level. So your goal is to be one of the 30 candidates that is not the one that gets screened out in the process. You want to be that final 10 as you come through. So on a video interview, these are actually pretty rare, but they do happen. Check your technology, plan your answers, and control the room, especially the lighting involved. You always want to dress to impress. They're not going to see everything, but regardless, you want to be in a mental state that you look well and feel well for the interview. And you also want to practice, 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 practice. Practice with fake questions that you make up that you think they're going to ask you. You already know one question. Usually the first question is what I call the resume recitation question. Tell us about what you've done to prepare yourself for your job. And you pretty much go through and you recite the different points of your resume. Yes, you gave it to them, but having you explain it changes the whole nature of what you put in writing. Your last question is going to probably be something along the lines, well, anything else you want to add? Is there anything else that you missed in the process? Or do you have any questions for us? Almost for sure. So you have those questions already down pat inside your head. It depends on the length of the interview. You should plan on the pace of about 5 minutes per question. So if it's a matter of an hour interview, you're going to have probably 10 to 12 questions to respond to. You already know the first and last one. Almost for sure they'll toss in a situational question and also a problem-solving question in the process. You pretty much can sit down and start figuring out some of the questions, and almost for sure you'll be able to come up with at least 4 or 5 questions they're going to ask you. But even if they don't ask you the questions, the best part about practicing is you have it in your head that I've already prepared for this interview, which really is worth its weight in the process of going in there so you can be the best you can be on the inside. Sit up straight, look forward, actually lean forward a little bit in the process. Don't let your eyes drop. You want to have really good eye contact with everybody on the interview as you go through. It depends on the organization. Private sector companies, it's not uncommon to have a single person for the interview or 2 or 3. In the public sector where I work, I've had 24 people on the committee. Fortunately, all 24 thought I was the best candidate. I agreed with them. Okay, so that being said, you'll have all kinds of different mixes as to who's going to sit down and be in the interview process. So focus on the answers, have stories prepared about things that happen. So interview types and purposes, come prepared with knowledge about the company, plan on success, practice potential questions, know about the 6 stages of hiring. That pretty much is standard for any company. And then know the goal of the screening. Your goal there is to get your resume past that screening onto the interview, and know the goals of the interview, which is to hire you in the process at the very end. Take care.